What is the sound of betrayal? Is it the sharp silver hiss of a blade drawn in darkness, or the suffocating silence where a brother's oath once stood? In the swamps of Black Marsh, where life and death swim in the same murky water, loyalty is the only dry land. But what happens when that land crumbles beneath your feet? Tonight we journey into the heart of Argonia, into a world of oppressive humidity and ancient secrets, to follow a ghost who was once a man. We will walk in the shadows of towering mangrove roots and listen to the whispers carried on the bog-scented air. We follow a thief whose hands were meant to reclaim his people's honor, only to find them stained with the very blood he swore to protect. This is a tale of intrigue that poisons from within, of a hero forged in the solitude of exile, and of a reckoning that will shake the very foundations of the Saxhleel. How does one kill a lie when it wears the face of a savior? And what must be sacrificed to reclaim a truth that has been drowned in the marsh? Prepare yourselves, for the reeds have eyes, and the shadows are hungry. If you value stories of brutal loyalty, and even crueler betrayal, subscribe now and stay with us until the chilling end. You will not want to miss a single step on this path of vengeance. The air in Stormhold was a thick, wet blanket, smelling of damp stone river mud, and the spicy tang of fermenting marsh fruit. For Deesh, it was the smell of home. His grey scales, slick with the evening's humidity, allowed him to blend into the lichen-covered walls of the Undercity. Below, the market fires of the common quarter cast flickering, orange tongues of light against the oppressive darkness, illuminating faces of traders, warriors, and worried mothers. He moved not like a creature of flesh and bone, but like a whisper given form, a shadow detaching itself from other shadows. His target was the spire of the Hist, the grandest structure in the city, where the elder of the bright-scale tribe guarded their traditions with a grip as tight as a strangler vine. His mission, however, came not from an enemy, but from his own clutch brother, Vorax. Vorax, with his gleaming bronze scales and warrior's heart, burned with a fire Deesh had always admired, and sometimes feared. "Our people grow weak, Deesh," Vorax had hissed, his forked tongue tasting the air in agitation. "The elders cling to the old ways while outsiders encroach. The Unravel understand. We must show our tribe that strength, not passive tradition, is our salvation." The objective was the egg-toothed dagger. It was a relic of the hatching time, set to carve the future for the tribe's next generation. To steal it was sacrilege, but Vorax had a plan. They would take it, create a panic, and Vorax, as the captain of the guard, would reclaim it, proving the elders' security was flawed and that a stronger hand was needed. Deesh, as the best thief in Stormhold, was the only one who could slip past the spire's wards and traps. It was a dangerous, arrogant plan. It was Vorax, through and through. Deesh scaled the final wall, his claws finding silent purchase in the mortar. The air atop the spire was cooler, carrying the deep, resonant hum of the Hist tree at its heart. He slipped through a window slit, a ribbon of grey smoke entering a sealed chamber. The room was a museum of his people's past. Carved totems, ceremonial shells, and hanging roots glowing with faint, bioluminescent light. And there, on a pedestal of petrified wood, lay the dagger. It was small, carved from the fossilized tooth of a primordial Wamasu, its edge still impossibly sharp. As his fingers closed around its hilt, a strange coldness seeped into his skin, a feeling that went beyond the chill of ancient bone. He secured the relic in a pouch lined with well silk. The first part of the plan was done, now for the escape. But as he turned, the heavy stone door to the chamber groaned open. In the doorway stood not a guard, but Vorax himself. His bronze scales seemed to absorb the dim light, making him a figure of shadow and fire. Behind him lay the crumpled form of the tribe's elder, a ceremonial spear jutting from his chest. "Vorax, what is this?" Deesh's voice was a dry rasp. "A necessary change," Vorax said, his voice devoid of warmth. He held up a hand, and from the shadows behind him, two massive Argonian warriors, bearing the sigil of the Unravel, stepped forward. They were not bright scales. They were outsiders. "Our tribe needs a martyr to unite it, a villain to blame." The elder was too soft. "You, brother, you are the perfect scapegoat." The world dissolved into a cacophony of shouts. Alarms roared through the spire. Vorax pointed a claw at Deesh. "There, the assassin. He has killed the Elder and stolen the egg tooth. The betrayal was a physical blow, colder and sharper than any blade. Deesh didn't think, he reacted. He crashed through the stained glass window behind him, a shower of colored shards raining down into the darkness. He hit the roof tiles below, his lithe body absorbing the impact, and vaulted over the edge, plunging into the dark canals of Stormhold. The last thing he heard was Vorax's voice, not of a brother but of a ruler, crying out for the head of the traitor, Deesh. The deep marsh did not forgive. It was a realm of perpetual twilight beneath the canopy of giant trees, a place where the water held as many secrets as the sky. For weeks, Deesh was more beast than Argonian. He hunted, he hid, he survived. The price on his head had made every friendly face in Stormhold a potential enemy. He was a ghost, a whispered story told to frighten hatchlings. The betrayal had scoured him clean, leaving only a cold, hard knot of rage. Vorax, now the proclaimed hero who had driven off the assassin, had seized control of the tribe. His speeches, carried by traders and travelers, were filled with fire and xenophobia, blaming Dunmer spies and imperial meddlers for the tribe's woes, with Deesh as their prime agent. It was a lie, but it was a lie the people wanted to believe. His flight led him to the sunken Temple of the Root, a place few dared to venture. There, amidst submerged ruins and luminous fungi, he found Nisha. She was ancient, her scales the color of dried mud and her eyes like chips of obsidian. She sat wreathed in the smoke of burning bog herbs, her gnarled hands sorting the entrails of a marsh eel. "The hunter who has lost his way," she croaked without looking up. "You run from a shadow that wears your own face." Deesh, gaunt and wary, kept his distance. "I run from a lie." "A lie is a seed," she rasped, pulling a glistening organ from the mess. "It only grows if the soil is fertile. Your clutch brother did not create the hatred in your tribe. He merely gave it a name." She finally looked at him, her gaze piercing. "The Ansilil pull his strings. They seek to unite all of Argonia under a single banner of venom, to drive out all who are not Saxhleel. Vorax is their puppet, and the egg-tooth dagger is the symbol they will use to anoint him as a conqueror in a false Hist ceremony. Over the next months, Nisha taught him. She did not teach him how to fight with a spear or a sword. She taught him the ways of the marsh itself, how to use the reflective surface of the water to create illusions, how to mix the pollens of carnivorous plants to create paralytic dusts, how to listen to the whispers of the Hist spores on the wind. Deesh was no longer a simple thief who scaled walls. He was becoming an extension of the swamp, a predator who used darkness and fear as his primary weapons. His rage cooled, hardening into a purpose as sharp and cold as the dagger he still carried, a constant reminder of his folly. He had to return to Stormhold, not to kill Vorax, for a dead martyr was more powerful than a living tyrant. He had to dismantle the lie piece by piece until the people saw the rot for themselves. He had to become the serpent in the reeds, unseen until the moment he struck. Stormhold was a different city. Ansilil banners hung from the spires, and Vorax's peacekeepers patrolled the streets, their bronze-scale armor a mockery of Deesh's own lost honor. Suspicion was a currency, and fear was the law. Deesh moved through the city's forgotten pathways, the flooded sewer systems, the high gantries of the dock workers, the hollow spaces behind temple walls. He was a phantom, his grey scales a perfect camouflage against the stone and mist. His first target was the flow of gold. The Ansilil were funding Vorax, shipping him weapons and armor from the south. Deesh intercepted their couriers not with violence but with silence. Pouches of gold vanished, letters of instruction were replaced with forgeries sowing discord, and shipments of weapons were mysteriously rerouted into the deepest, most impassable parts of the swamp. He left a single recurring mark at the scene of each disruption, the sigil of a coiled serpent biting its own tail. Panic began to fester within the Ansilil ranks. They were being haunted. Next, he turned to Vorax's inner circle, the lieutenants who enforced his iron-fisted rule. Deesh learned their secrets. One had a stash of illegally harvested Hist sap. Another was skimming coin from the city's coffers. A third was secretly communicating with a rival tribe. Deesh didn't expose them. He simply made sure the evidence found its way to the right people at the right time. A misplaced ledger here, an anonymous tip there. Vorax's regime, built on a foundation of lies, began to eat itself alive as paranoia took root. The captain of the peacekeepers was arrested on Vorax's own order. His second-in-command was found poisoned. And trust, the rarest of commodities, evaporated completely. The final act was set for the night of the naming ceremony, where Vorax planned to perform a ritual with the egg-toothed dagger, dedicating himself to a corrupted vision of the Hist and solidifying his absolute rule. The entire tribe was gathered in the central plaza, the air thick with incense and tension. Vorax stood on the high dais, the dagger held aloft, his bronze scales gleaming in the torchlight. His voice boomed across the plaza, a sermon of purity, strength, and hatred for the outside world. As he began the incantation, a sudden thick fog rolled in from the canals, a fog Deesh had spent weeks preparing, distilled from swamp spores that caused mild confusion and heightened fear. Panic rippled through the crowd. Then, from the shadows of the great temple, a figure emerged. Not Deesh, but the disgraced lieutenant he had freed from the dungeons, screaming of Vorax's corruption and presenting the forged letters, now believed to be real, that implicated Vorax in a plot to sell the tribe out to southern warlords. At the same moment, high above, a banner unfurled from the spire of the Hist. It was the old banner of the Brightscale tribe, the one the murdered elder had championed, a symbol of peace and tradition. Confusion turned to chaos. Vorax, enraged, saw his perfect moment slipping away. He roared for his guards, but they were busy trying to control the panicked crowd. And in that moment of distraction, Deesh struck. He did not emerge from the shadows. He was the shadows. He rose from a grate behind the dais, a silent, grey spectre. Vorax turned, sensing him a second too late. There was no grand duel, no clash of blades. Deesh moved like a striking viper. His hand, dusted with the paralytic pollen Nisha had taught him to prepare, shot out and pressed against Vorax's neck. The mighty warrior froze, his muscles locking, his body a bronze statue. The egg-toothed dagger fell from his nerveless fingers, clattering onto the stone. Deesh caught it. He held it up for all to see, the symbol of their people, now reclaimed. He did not speak. He did not need to. The serpent had struck, not with venom, but with the truth. The lie, once exposed, shattered like sun-dried clay. With Vorax paralyzed and his conspiracy laid bare, the ancestral agents in Stormhold were captured, and the authority of their xenophobic faction crumbled. The tribe, shocked and shamed, turned to the guidance of the remaining elders, who worked to heal the divisions that Vorax had so expertly carved into their society. Vorax himself was not executed. He was exiled to the deep marsh, his status and name stripped from him, condemned to live as a ghost, a fate Deesh knew all too well. Deesh did not remain to accept thanks or reclaim his name. He had operated in the shadows for so long that the light now felt foreign and harsh. The hero they wanted was a myth, and the truth of what he had become was something they would never understand. He was no longer just a thief. He was a guardian who worked from the darkness, a necessary poison to cure a deeper sickness. He returned the egg-toothed dagger to its rightful place in the spire, leaving it on the pedestal before melting back into the city's underbelly. He returned to the sunken temple, to the humid silence of the ruins. His work was not done. The Unravel were a cancer that had not been fully excised from Black Marsh. Other tribes were being swayed by their venomous promises. There would be other puppets like Vorax, other lies that needed to be silently dismantled. Deesh, the serpent in the reeds, embraced his new role. He would be the unseen protector, the whisper of fear in the ears of tyrants, the ghost who ensured that the heart of Black Marsh, murky and dangerous as it was, would never be poisoned from within again. His name was forgotten, but his work, like the silent, steady flow of the swamp, would endure.